Hi, I'm Phil, owner of Lokomotiv Tattoos here at Stuttgart, Germany, and I'm the founder and inventor of the STANDSTILL transfer system. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to tattoo with the STANDSTILL transfer system and all its advantages. I'm going to do a fine line illustrative peony with some decorated leaves around it. Let's go! So before we start, I'm just going to show you my daily routine and all the essentials I'm using on my workstation. Obviously, I'm using coil machines. Bavaria custom irons, they're the best to me. Using them since 18 years now. And yeah, no matter what people say and all the buzz and the good usability of rotary, for me, this is a very good tool for tattooing. So I'm using it. Most of my team, they're using the FK Irons rotary machine, which is a very good tool. I always switching if I think there are advantages in using the rotary machines with the cartridges of Quadron, then I'm switching to this system. The next main essential, of course, is the ink. Here I'm using Kurosumi outlining ink, which for me, in my experience, is the best black ink that I'm using. Very versatile. If you mix it with water to a certain percentage, you can have all the gray tones and all the contrasts in your tattoos, so this works for me perfectly. The next essentials in my workstation are disinfectant spray, water, distillate water with green soap, and of course, because we're using the STANDSTILL transfer system, here's our skin adhesive spray. Paper towels, distillate water, and ink cups in sizes where I think I can get the best mixture of my ink. All available at Killer Ink. So that's basically my setup. Let's get into the stencil. First step is of course the printing. Here's for me the first big advantage. I'm going to show you why. Here I prepared a peony. This is the drawing I actually did for the client. As you can see, I can choose every color I want to, and afterwards I can, for me, choose the best color which my stencil should look like. So once you decided what is the right size for your tattoo, you place it and then you feed the printer with a stencil sheet. So the printing process is different than before because it's much more time saving and easier. Just put the sheet in the bottom feeded printer, open this, then you go on your iPad, whatever graphic or digital program you are using, press printing. I choose color because I wanted it in red and green. Print it out, wait for it, and it will be finished in a second. And here's the precise stencil, no smudging, different colors, whatever you want. First of all, what we all have to do as a tattoo artist, clean the skin, get rid of all the hair. For this, I use common disinfectant spray. It's always good for your stencil, whether it's the common system or the STANDSTILL transfer system, that the skin is very dry, and this comes from cleaning it very good with disinfectant. Then you get rid of all the layers, the natural layers on the skin, and the surface is quite dry, so the stencil is a clean and long-lasting projection of your motif. After I disinfect the skin, I take the shaver, get rid of all tiny hairs in this area. Clean the whole surface good and solid, so to make sure that there's no hair underneath the transfer film. That should be good. I would recommend to save the shaver of your client as long as you really start tattooing, because sometimes you throw it away and you discover a lasting hair, then you have to use a new shaver. So this is for a less waste policy. We're going to do a fine line peony with decorative leaves around it. And here you can see that you can print out very good the total and fully shaded version of the end result, which is quite good for the client. You can show your client now, if you apply the Stencil film on the skin, you can show the outcoming results, and the client is more secure to decide whether he wants the design or he's not unsure anymore how the outcome result would be after you finish tattooing. The second thing is, now you can apply fully shaded or like realistic images or portraits or just fully shaded concepts to the skin, and then you can skip the lining process on your iPad. Normally, because it's good for the conventional transfer paper, you only try to project lines and ghost lines and regions where you have to shade and whether not. And this is a whole work step, lining through a realistic concept on the iPad. You can skip that because I can do the lining directly on the skin now. Huge time saver and much more control where to line dark, where to line light, where to mark your regions of what you want to shade afterwards and what not. So what I really love about this product is that now you can choose any color that you want for your stencil. It's not the limited two main colors like red and violet, which I've been using for 18 years. But then I found out that now I can put an even higher contrast for me, visual contrast on the skin to my tattooing ink, what I've already tattooed and what I still have to tattoo. So for me, green is a very good choice, but you can choose now any color that you want, what your inkjet printer is possibly able to print. And for me, this is really changing the game. And what I just did is, if you saw just the flip over, if you want to test or you want to have a look at what the tattoo would look like if you mirror it, this is also done in a second. And I really celebrate that of this product. You can switch it up and down, you can mirror it, you can flip it. So for me, this is guessing what my end result will be in my end final position, the best position where it makes click. This is for me such an easy way to find out now, without cleaning, without anything, and all this annoying smudging and all this annoying getting rid, producing a new stencil, reposition it, explanations to the customer that this and that is not possible because it's too much work in it and there's so much cleaning behind it and so much time is going, past. This is all gone. I'm free. I can deliver every wish that the client possibly offers or wants from me to have a change in the position. And for me, this is just like a new experience. Okay, the next step, after you tested all the versions and all the different options that you got in positioning, it comes to preparing the skin with the skin adhesive. Therefore, you should not make the highest distance on the surface of the skin. You just spray it like you want to color it with a spray color. I make sure that I have a proper look at the surface, at the skin, and when it's a little bit like shiny, it's the perfect amount of skin adhesive. Make sure not to spray it from here. Choose a closer distance and give it a proper spray. That should be enough. Alright. I can also say this I really love about the product, about this transfer system. You don't have to hurry anymore. Once you applied the fixative, the skin adhesive, you can take your time. You can even drink a coffee and then come back to your positioning game. So for me, this is super nice that I don't have the stress in my neck to find the right moment, whether the stencil stuff is not too dry and it's still wet enough to project the stencil on the skin. Now I have all the time. There is no time gap anymore. I am free to choose when to apply and whether not. So in the next step, of course, I'm going back to the final version, which we decided would be best on the skin. And I don't have to be careful because first I can just lay it down. Lay it on the skin and there will be no smudging or no moment of cleaning. You can take it off again, find the right position, which was this one actually, no, this one. You can see, turn it around as much or as often as you want to. And then I can find here the perfect distance to the existing tattoo. And now I can switch gently all the angles. I can extend it a little bit, I can shrink it a little bit, it's no problem at all. Once you found the perfect size, perfect color of your stencil, and of course the perfect spot, you don't have to hurry. You can just lay it on the skin. And that is the moment I really love about it. Look, all these hours of cleaning, all these sensitive moments of scary, that there will be a lot of work coming up, hours and hours of cleaning, even when it comes to large scale projects and you didn't really match the middle of the bag. You have to clean the whole thing. It's really wasting time. It's really taking hours and hours. So this pain in the ass is all gone. I'm not a cleaner anymore. I'm actually tattooing. So as you can see, this was super easy for me to find the first position. And now, just to prove it again, if I wanted a little bit more on the top or on the right side, this is such a great moment to see that there is no projection until I say so. So this is such a time saver. And here's, I have to say, another advantage I really love about it. I still have clean hands. There's no smudging, there's no fading, there's nothing. The stencil is always precise and clean. You can see all the lines, and there is no need for being very carefully right now. There is no need to think all the time. Don't touch any other area with your maybe violet or red fingertips and stuff like that. It's just a clean professional process. So once you recognize the part of your stencil which is not sticking to the skin, it's super easy. Just peel it off a little bit, add some more of the adhesive spray, and then press it on again, just as quick as that, and then you have a totally fine, perfect projection of your concept on the skin. Here comes the last step of the positioning part. Once you found the right angle, you found the right position and the right size of your concept, you have applied it to the skin. You want to spray it with a fine mist of disinfectant, which makes the stencil very flexible, which makes it soft, and also it matters down, so you can see very good where to tattoo. As you can see, now it's ultra flexible. It's still not smudging, it's still not fading away, so you can take your time in tattooing later. And a very good thing about it is, what some people has questioned me, due to the fact that I sprayed the skin with the skin adhesive spray, there is no sweating underneath, there's no blooding underneath, so the surface under this transfer film is always dry. You don't have to worry that other liquids could fade away the stencil, or that other liquids then from the outside could maybe disappear the stencil or making it fade away. It will stay stable until you wipe it away. So as you have recognized, I sprayed a fine mist on the tattoo stencil. It's very important to use a fine spray, and that you don't spray it directly, because due to the fact that it's water soluble, there would be too much liquid. So you're trying to throw a fine mist of the disinfectant spray like this on the whole concept, and then you will recognize that it changes to a soft, flexible status, and this is the right moment to grab your tattoo gun and go for it. It is very important to make sure to use ointment first, or Vaseline, which I'm using, then pulling your line and then dabbing, not wiping the excess ink away. Just give it a light dab, then put the paper towel away, have a look at your proper line, and then you move on to the next line. So first of all, there is ointment. As you can see, not too much. And then you go, and as soon as you dab the excess ink, you can see your drawn line. You can see your tattooed line, and then you have full control over what you've done and what you still have to do. As I said before, make sure to use Vaseline or ointment. The transfer film is stable to all ointments and Vaseline, so you're totally free to use it. So the next one is also like the one I did before. Give it a gently touch in the beginning and then start drawing your line. Especially at the beginning of using this technique, which has so many advantages in positioning, you just have to adapt a little bit your work rhythm. Take your time, concentrate on working clean and patient for the best results. Once you get used to the product and to the whole process, you can work faster, and of course you have more control over all the impressions that you get during tattooing, and you know exactly what to do. You can give anytime the concept and the film a good stretch. This is no problem. As you can see, you can stretch the skin. I wouldn't recommend to stretch it too much because the surface itself is very sticking and very good connected to each other, so you don't have to extend the skin for tattooing that much anymore. It works also with a middle to light stretch. From time to time, you should clean your needle a little bit, because it's not because of the transfer film, but sometimes you get a little bit of ointment or Vaseline in the tip of your needle. Make sure that it runs free. I'm using a small liner right now for the outlines, so tattooing line by line, no rush. As you can see, after I push the line, I'm patient and just dabbing the excess ink away, so I have a full control and full visibility of the line work I'm doing. Trying to work clean and precise. In case if there is a little bit ink in some wrinkles of the transfer film, it's no problem. Just push a little bit of the paper towel on top and it will directly start being dry, and you have control over the clean visibility of your concept again. It's not necessarily important which direction, if you're pulling a line or pushing a line, both techniques are working in combination or solo. For me, it's just the good feeling to push the line, because in my opinion, you have a good control over where your line is going. And the visibility for me, due to the fact where the light comes from, very good overview. So as you can see, the needle is not clogged, it is free, although I'm going through the transfer film. But once you have the situation, the needle is a little bit running dry or not transferring that much ink as you want it to be, and there's a tiny little bit of the transfer film clogged in the needle, you just have to dab a quick moment in water. Due to the fact that it's water soluble, the needle will be free again. Just clean it, that's it, you're ready to go again. This is a good moment to show what I've already tattooed, what I've already lined of my concept, and here is the rest of the concept to go. It is still very clear visibility, the lines are precise and a clean projected, I choose green for the contrast to my tattoo ink. And as you can see and as you recognize, the transfer film is stable on ointments. It's still not smudging, no fading. You can clean it with a dry paper towel. It's even not that painful for the client if you dry wipe it, because there's a film on the skin. And yeah, you have a very good control and very good visibility of the upcoming lines you have to do. You can also take a look at the fine lining work that I've done already, because the transfer film dissolves a little bit around the tattooed line, so there is no fear or you don't have to be afraid to lose control over your stencil, because you cannot clean it instantly. So if you take your time, work patient with Vaseline, then pulling or pushing your line, and then dry dapping the excess ink. If you control your workflow in the first moment until you get used to the product, you will always have a good control over your concept. You will always have a good visibility, and there's no need to directly clean all the concept after you push the line. Let's continue and finish all the lines, and then we go over to the shadings. So what I like is here, I first try to put the outline of the major shape of the leaf, which is this thing here. And later, for the shadings that are coming up, I'm trying to mark these dynamic lines who give this leaf the shape. I'm trying to lighten a little bit my outlining ink up. So there's a higher water percentage in these lines right now, and I'm pushing them a little bit quicker to be them more light than the actual outline of the leaf. For me, this is a good way to bring dynamic in this leaf form, and to have a direction later what shape I want to shade on that leaf. So when it comes to long lines, trying to use here my left hand to stretch the skin. As you can see, it's very good stretchable. And on the other side, I'm trying to give it a little bit of stability for my tattooing hand. And then it's no problem for me to start the line right here and go all the way to the top. Then dab the excess ink away. You can take a look of your line, maybe correct it a little bit if you want to. You can do that later also. Same thing with this one here, and on the inner side. And we're almost done. Just 2 more leaves and a few lines I have to draw. Then we will get to the cleaning process of the stencil transfer film. The next step, this is now the finished, I'd say, status after I've done all the lines. You can see a little bit dissolving of the transfer film around the lines I pushed, and now it's time to clean it. And then you have your lined concept on the skin. After that, you can skip directly to the shadings. All right. For cleaning the stencil transfer film, you water a paper towel with a good amount of distilled water and green soap, and then you just place it directly on top of the transfer film. Leave it there for 5 to 7 seconds. This is good for the client also. It's a nice moment. Flowers, blue sky and sun. Then you start wiping it gently. Turn it around. Try to be patient here also. And then you see that the transfer film is dissolving. And you have a clean, good visibility of the lining concept, of the line work you've done on the skin. We can recommend also, if it's still a little bit sticky afterwards from the skin adhesive, that you use skin oil to reduce the stickiness. You don't want to have that after you got cleaned the STANDSTILL film. So this is a good advice for you to have the best status of the skin and of your tattooing line work. Use a little bit of skin oil, get rid of the skin adhesive, and then you're ready to shade and fulfill your tattoo design. As you can see, after we cleaned all the STANDSTILL transfer film just with water and green soap, you have a good look at your line work. From this status on, you can start the shadings, but first you want to get rid of the little bit stickiness of the skin. So here is a solution for that. It's just one more step, just easy. Water a little bit of a paper towel, add some skin oil, clean the surface of the skin with the skin oil a little bit. Just a quick wipe. Vaseline also works. So now we're going to do the shadings. When it comes to a fine line peony like here, I always try to use a liner for the shadings in the first side. Afterwards I can add some more depth to it with a shader. What I like to do is pulling fine lines at the shadings next to each other. At the end there will be a little bit of wet shading, as you can see. For me as an artist, I'm trying to do the shadings more or less freehand. I have an idea in my head, before my eyes, in front of my eyes, how the outcome should look like, and then I just let it flow. Good thing right here is now, if you had a little bit of hesitation in first sight, tattooing through the transfer film, and the lines are not that solid as you wanted them to be or as you are used to be, you are totally free, and it's easy to reline a little bit here and there to give it another contrast or a higher contrast, whatever you want to. Make sure not to damage the skin too much. If you are shading with a liner, you always have to be careful not to damage the skin too much. So that's why from time to time you should use dot work and not always this dynamic back and forth with the needle. So I'm twisting his wrist, and of course pulling the skin or stretching the skin. Stretching the skin is always useful to have not that much movement on the skin during tattooing, and twisting his wrist is for my own visibility, so I don't have to change my own angle during working. I just take a good grip, if I'm able for it, take a good grip and trying to face the tattoo on my side, so I have a good control and visibility over what I'm tattooing and what I'm shading. Sometimes from time to time I take a step back, look if the outcome is what I planned it to be, or if I have to adjust a little bit more. and then I'm going back to the perfect position for me to tattoo. In my opinion, and I think this is a very useful technique. You should always make sure that both of you, the client and the tattooer, are in a good spot. The one to keep the position that they have to hold for some hours, and for the tattooer also that they have a good visibility and a good movement around their artwork, so they can work with not that much, let's say, crack in the back. This petal here, I want the flower to be a little bit more three-dimensional, so I'm trying to make a little bit of a shadow underneath. To avoid that, like, lines who are close together, like blurring with the time, you have to make sure not to use full black. If you use a tight needle with a lightened up outlining black, in my experience of 18 years, and I had the possibility to take a look at some fine line work, which is like 10 years ago, I always had the impression that that is not, if they are not like fully black lines, you can also put them, you can still put them very tight together and they're not like blurring. So I think this is still a possible way to make really fine line tattooing without falling apart or blurring together. And as you can see, I changed the color of these structure lines. Sometimes they are a little bit more dominant, and on the other side or next to it there are like lighten up lines, so you can give it a little bit of variation, which is more natural, not too strict. So when I come to the closer to the middle of the peony, I'm trying to separate the petals who are on top, and of course the inside of the peony, which is in the shadow. So I'm trying to make a good contrast here, leave some tops of the petals bright and very close to no shading. As you can see so far, I've done my shadings all with the same liner that I've used for the Linework, which I prefer because I don't want the outline in this case to be separated by its thickness from the shading lines. I want everything to be quite the same structure and the same dominance. That's more natural to me. From my perspective, I recognize there are so many good young tattooers or just crazy good artists in the tattooing times nowadays, and when I see fine line artists doing like peonies like that, it's a very nice and super beautiful motive. I recognize that creating shadows underneath some petals is very important, and it gives the whole thing very good flow. So trying to create also in my images of flowers a little bit of three-dimensional attributes. with light and shadow, bright sides of the motif and dark contrast, full of contrast sides of the motif. I think this gives soul to your illustration. I always trying to actually search an actual light source which is giving me light for tattooing, and trying to trying to adjust my shadings on the way where the light is in reality coming from. That's much easier for me to create, like I do, freehand shadings like I'm doing here, and the light is slightly coming from this side, so I'm trying to put shadows underneath the petals which are going outside of the flower, so the shadow shall be on this side. So that's what my inspiration is. I'm searching a light source in the real moment, and then I'm trying to project that on the three-dimensional motif on the skin. Something that's always stuck with me is when it comes to tattooing and when it comes to artwork, there are so many ways to achieve good results. I always try to not focus on one way or being stuck in one way. I always try to be versatile and always try to be open-minded for just different ways to get the best results possibly. As tattooing is an art form, I was always trying to keep my eyes open when it comes to other art forms like oil paintings or like pencil drawings, or like there are also art forms of printings like engraving and so first thing that comes, for example, to my mind is you don't have to shade with a shader when it comes to tattooing. You can shade through like close lines that are getting closer together to create darker shadings. You can shade with whip shading and with dots. There are so many ways to achieve a certain result in your artwork, and I was always trying to be open-minded and maybe to try it out, because in the end, if I don't know or never walked this path, I won't find out if it's maybe the better way for me to achieve better results, you know. What always stuck to my mind was I was always trying to be open-minded, trying to keep my eyes open on all the experience I had with other art forms. And when it comes then to tattooing, because I never had a teacher, I just tried different ways to get my results better. So I tried to replicate different techniques from, let's say, art printing, or let's say oil painting, let's say drawing with a pencil and stuff like that. So I tried to replicate the movements, trying to replicate the outcome of different art forms and different techniques, and then always be open-minded to find new ways to even get better results. I think this is one thing I'm trying to live every day. What helps me the most in improving my skills as an artist, or just my improvement of my own character, is staying interested, being open to new ideas, being open to ideas from art forms where I never had like crossing lines with, you know. But once I recognize, let's say it this way, I never will do the statement that I don't like this kind of music or that kind of music that I've never heard. if I hear a strange word form for a kind of metal music and stuff like that, and I've never really experienced what this music is about and how it sounds, I would never do the statement that I don't like this music. Once you have done the real experience with this or that, then you can, yeah, then you can have an opinion about it, or then you can say this is nothing for me, or this really helps me. We're still progressing here on the shadings, and of course every time I do shadings and I'm like illustrating one or the other thing like freehand mostly, it's always nice for me to see, it's always a nice and beautiful moment for me to see what styles in my tattooing career I've been confronted with and what choose to stay, you know. In my opinion, it's not that you can really establish a style. I think it's just a moment, or it's just times when a certain style chooses you to be part of you and to influence you and maybe to stay and to take part in your output, you know. So I think that's maybe a good advantage from me to being interested in different workflows, different styles. So yeah, and then it gets better and better, and then years later you can call it a little bit your style because it's a mix of different influences. Yeah. So this really makes fun here. The same idea is for me the wonderful experience every day with this transfer system. Just the fact that I found a way to project something on the skin, having different opinions to follow the guidance when it comes to artwork on the skin, which is hard to do every time freehand, so that's why we need guidance in form of stencils. And the fact that I found a new way, a different technique than the common one, which is quite the same since the beginning of modern tattooing, this is just something that fascinates me. There are so many ways in the world that can be modernized, or that there is just an alternative to it. Because as you can see, my technique, or my invented technique with the Stencil transfer film, it works. The final result will be a good clean tattoo on my client's skin. And this is what it's about. This is what tattooing is about. This is why I choose this option, to make it different, and in the best case to have advantages out of that. Because every technique, of course, as everybody knows, every technique has a little bit of stress, and every technique has a little bit of, you know, failure. And the main reason is every technique, as good as it is, has limits. And if you find an alternative to eliminate some limits or overcome some common borders, it's just a great moment. It's just a great tool for me. When I'm shading leaves like this one here, I'm trying to actually putting a contrast to the main motif, which is a lightener up peony. So, and in my aesthetic feeling, I'm trying to shade one side of the leaf a little bit darker than the other side, because due to the light source, there is always a shadow in a lighter side in the leaves. It makes them more alive, it makes them more I don't know, more, let's say, emotional. And it's decorated too. For me, it's just decorated, and I'm trying to shade right now here with tiny fine lines next to each other to give the leaf not just a shading but also a shape. So the top side of the leaf will be more light. As you can see, the bottom side is quite dark and the top side will be more light. I use a different mix of my outlining ink. There is more water included now, and I speed up a little bit in pushing the lines under the skin. So this two adjustments has the outcome that the line is more light and more contrast. Here I will add on another feature so that it's more like a kind of realistic image of the peony. I will add some shadows on the lower leaves because I choose my light source coming from this side, so there will be shadows from the petals on the leaves, and I will do this a little bit darker than the rest of the leaf. So the peony is casting shadows here on the lower leaves, and I will try to shade those a tiny bit more dark than the rest of the leaf. This will be the last section with this liner. Trying to finish all the line shadings and stuff. And then we will go over for a quick whip shading underneath to have a little bit more contrast here and there. And then it should be good. Finishing results. After you've done all the shadings, or me, after I've done now all the shadings with the fine lining needle, was a tight 3. I've done all the structure, all the shapes of the leaves and the petals, and I will do some substantial whip shadings underneath just to give the whole concept, or just to give the whole image a little bit more depth, a little bit more life, let's say it. So here and there you have to add some contrast, and we're finished. This is the pre-result, and now we will put some highlights and some contrast here and there, and we're finished. As you can see, if you take your time, not overwork the skin, you have slightly a redness on the skin, but it should look like that. There should be not that much blood, or there should be not that much redness, or that the skin is very stressed and stuff. But for this reaction of the skin, this good reaction of the skin, you should take your time. Don't overspeed when it comes to details, when it comes to structures and stuff like that. So take your time, because the result will stay for many years. So the better the skin reacts, the better is the outcome of the healed tattoo. Okay, this is a normal liner, a 3 liner, not a tight one. And I will do whip shadings. Whip shading for me is a very good way of shading, because you can add in a very good way darkness to it, or depth to it, you know. Whip shading for me is a very good way to control the intensity of my shadings, because I can add on as much as I want until I get the solid black. But very good to regulate. And it's a nice structure on the skin, by the way. For me, creating good whip shading, I'm using my needle in kind of a cross path. So I'm trying to first shade a little bit, or not a little bit, just shade in this direction with soft pressure. And then I change my angle and trying to find the cross path of it, and then spreading the dots from the other direction. I use cross hatching in whip shading to control the gradient of my shading. So if I start the cross hatching in this direction and open the rhythm up to the lighter part, this is for me a very smooth gradient then. This would be the outcome of the cross hatching. Very smooth gradient in your shadings. And also a structure, you know, there are tiny little dots, and for me this is just a nice texture. It looks just, it has soul. The next step would be using the same technique and making some shadow contrast in the flower. From here and there, it's hard to make a real dark spot in the flower that is needed there with only the fine lines. So that's the moment when you should use, or I'm using whip shading just to fulfill the depthness of the black. I always take a step back, trying to have a look what the image is looking like. Not always have this closer look. Try to get a little bit of distance and get an idea of what the image all in all is looking like. You can see I'm trying to put a little bit whip shading also here on the shadow side of the leaf, but I don't want it to be black. So I'm just spreading some dots, some whip shading, that this side of the peony is a little bit more dark, more gray, more in the shadow side of this flower. It's just a light grip on my machine. I speed up a little bit the movement from the needle, so I can touch the skin in kind of a waving way. So the dominant part is quite in the middle, but my movement is a little bit like a half a circle. Just touching the skin in the middle part with the tip of my needle. Let's see where I can also have to do some whip shadings. Here is a good spot. And what I could recommend, for me, solid black is not that good for whip shading, because you're going sometimes over certain parts of the tattoo more often. I would always recommend to use a lighter black for that. And if you want the part or the section of your whip shading a little bit more darker, just add another layer here. I've looked at the so far result, and for me there's no need for highlights. Usually, or in some tattoos, I'm trying to highlight the middle line of the leaves, but here I think is not necessary. What I could do is put some white highlights on the bright side where the light source is coming from, but due to the fact that they are quite bright, because his skin is very bright, there's no need and there's no usability for white pigment, because it wouldn't be shown that good. So we leave it like that. I really like the outcome of the result. We will do some photos and some documentary of the finished tattoo, and then we come back with the aftercare. Okay guys, we're finished and we are happy with the final result. As you can see, we waited for 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes after we finished the last line, the last shadings. I would recommend that because then the skin just settles down to its normal status. It's not that redness anymore, and it's not getting wet or there's any watering or blood to see. This is the perfect moment to start the aftercare and the protection for the next days. I'm using in this particular case the second skin of Dermalize Pro. This, in my opinion, is the perfect place for using second skin. For the second skin, I would recommend to cut the edges a little bit more round so that it doesn't peel off that fast. And I would start in a difficult area like the hand and all the angles here. I would cut 2 pieces and split them so that it's better applicable. So first I told my client to, first before you apply the second skin, you should make sure that the tattoo is clean and dry, even on the surroundings and all the circumstances, all the surroundings here, and the not tattooed skin around it should also be cleaned up and be dry so that the second skin is really fitting on the tattoo. Okay, after you cleaned it, you take the first piece and you peel off the back side of the Dermalize Pro second skin. Then you apply it. Be careful, applying it carefully with a good distance to the tattoo, so it should overlap at least a centimeter. That is my experience, that then you don't have this instant wrap off. Okay, gently pushing it, but making sure to apply the film very good and close to the skin, not that much air underneath or bubbles. Then you should lift the top film of the Dermalize Pro second skin and check if there's everywhere a good contact, not too many bubbles. You can press a little bit if it lifts up or if it's not in fully contact with the surface. And now I cut it a little bit curve in here so that it can fit here with the thumb and the first finger. Then again, peel off the back side first. Start with the difficult part to apply, because then it's easier for you to correct it. Okay, I would start here and then just fold it over, trying to make sure to cover everything with a good layover. Press it a little bit in all the ups and downs, and then after that make sure to peel off the top film. Press again, correct it in first side. I have made good experience to tell the clients to leave the second skin on at least for 3 days, and to make sure that it lasts that long, up to 6 days. My client shouldn't wash his hands too roughly, not too much water, because it's clean underneath. Just make sure that there's not much movement, not much rough, just incidents from the outside. Just make sure to still touch it gently, but he's much more flexible in his movement, in his doings, whatever he wants to touch. It's safe and protected, and I would definitely recommend Second Skin for Dermalize Pro in this kind of tattoo areas. And that's the tutorial finish. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about Standstill, follow us on Instagram or have a look at our YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe on Killer Ink.